Welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and I can't show hospitality to strangers because everyone here is a friend of the pod. Today, we're getting face-to-face to talk about the implications of isolation and digital age, but before we encourage one another in our meeting together, now that she's motivated us to acts of love and good works, let's welcome in an angel entertainer, Maron!
I've provoked you to acts of good works.
Yeah.
You have been provoked.
Welcome.
Thanks for welcoming me.
Yeah, and no Barry today, so we're here with
What?
Sara Nist.
Yes!
Yay! The B team.
Welcome, Sarah. No way.
The B team
No
is
way.
here.
You
We're here to
hosted this
represent.
past weekend, so I basically ran up to Sarah after services, and I was like, Sarah, please, will you join us on the pod? And you were like, ooh, maybe.
Yeah.
But you're
Under
here.
pressure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here under pressure.
Is
No.
Much duress.
it like a scary thing to do?
A little bit.
Because I feel like this is the easiest thing in the world. Like
Yeah,
we're just talking
friends.
with headphones on.
Well, ask me later.
We're just talking with headphones on.
Yeah. Headphones on, and there's no
But I didn't-
cameras.
But I didn't get the memo to where to leave. So
So
I don't know if I'm a friend of the pod.
if you're
a
not
fake
watching
friend.
on YouTube, Maron and I are wearing the new Between Sundays uniform.
The exact same color.
Yeah, we're wearing the same
It's
shirt.
like a beautiful deep
Yeah.
maroon.
Yeah.
It looks, and it complements both of us so
It
so
does.
nicely.
It does.
Yeah, my wife says I don't wear red a lot, but I looked today and I have 4 red hoodies. So I'm wearing one of them.
It's a very
Anyways.
universal color. And as I said, Barry has at least 2 shirts that are the same color. So the likelihood of us all matching someday, it is great.
So I have a level of anxiety every time we start the podcast or every time we do the podcast each week because I have to think about what I wear to work.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I told you this was Tyler has been wanting to do this podcast on video for a very long time. And that has been my main concern.
Yeah.
It's like I have to think about what I have to do my hair
Welcome
on
to
a
a woman's world.
Monday
Yeah,
or Tuesday.
That's
on the
probably
daily.
true.
Yeah, it is.
But I don't mean I have to look nice. I mean I can't okay, we record on Mondays typically. Today is a Tuesday, but typically we're recording on Mondays and I'm like, well, I've already worn that version of clothes in prior episodes. I can't have that on camera again. That's what I mean.
Really? You don't think you're going to repeat on camera?
Well, eventually I will, but I'm like, I've already worn that combo. I can't do that.
I release you
But
from
nobody-
that. No one's noticing.
You
no
put
one's
me
keeping
here.
score. No.
You put me here.
put us here when you
Yeah.
decided to add those cameras to the mix.
Oh, guys, I want to hear all about your weekends. I know that you guys were busy and together. And so I want to hear all about what we call MergeCon. Sarah, you kind of headed up the charge. Why don't you share a little bit? Well, first of all, share a little bit about who you are in case the listeners don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the friends of the pod know me.
Yeah. Well, Sara Nist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I get to be our associate pastor for kids and students.
Don't act like you're a big shot.
You got to go easy on her, Tyler.
I'm on the B team.
Go.
No.
Associate pastors call ourselves the B team,
Oh my goodness. Wait,
which we really love.
That's not true.
Because
I was an
on the
associate pastor at
on
some
the
point.
tail end of my growing up, the A team came on TV.
Yes, of course.
So to call ourselves the B team gives me a lot of joy.
Okay.
You know.
Would that
Guys, we
make
gotta knock this off.
that would make me Mr. T? Am I
Yes.
Mr.
Yeah,
T in
you're-
this
Yes,
equation?
you
Okay.
do have
That's
a
the
gold
only one I
chain.
know. That's the only one I know.
I pity the fool.
God rules.
So
yeah,
you
that's my
oversee
role
kids and
here.
students.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about who you are. What do you do? What do you like?
What do I do and what do I like?
Who are you?
I like my husband of
Yeah.
25 years, Andy.
He calls you coach.
Yeah, we haven't played pickleball in a long time.
Yeah,
Really?
avid pickleball
No. I
players.
I thought you guys lived for pickleball.
I know, but not this winter.
Oh.
So I am in a deficit.
Okay.
Yeah.
My soul is in a deficit
Yeah.
for sure.
Avid pickleball players.
Yeah,
though,
we are
normally.
avid
Yeah.
pickleball players. Yes,
Yeah.
we are in a league for the spring, but it doesn't start until March.
Okay.
So we do that when we can. We actually get to hang out with our 3 young adult kids more than you'd think.
Well,
You
cool.
get to.
Well,
That's
Maron,
nice.
because-
I know what that
thing.
life
Yeah.
is like.
I know we do.
Yeah.
So our oldest lives in Indy as a teacher, but should we get her to come back? You know,
all right.
like she comes back for dinner stuff.
Yeah.
And our middle moved back, and so he and I watch NFL together.
Oh, good.
NBA, you know.
Super Bowl this weekend.
Yep. I started watching Quarterback on Netflix to
Okay.
get ready
Yeah.
for the Super Bowl, so I have something intelligent
Yeah,
to say.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to root for him,
Oh.
but I will be watching,
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll be watching for Patrick.
Yeah.
And our youngest is 18, still in the house. And so we get to hang out with her. And
Great.
we have a golden retriever that we really like hanging out with.
All right. What's the dog's
So
name?
His name is Bodie.
Friends of the pod are avid pet lovers.
Yeah.
Mostly because
Yeah.
of Barry. But,
Sure.
Yeah.
All because of Barry.
All because of Barry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bodie would fit in great on the farm.
Good.
Yeah.
Golden retriever. My wife sends me golden retriever puppy pictures almost daily.
Because you
Oh,
guys
I
are in the
bet.
market.
I
No, we're
bet.
definitely not in the market. Friends of the pod,
You
please do
definitely
not
are.
send me photos. But my wife daily will be like, "What about this dog?" And I'll be like, "No," and she'll say, "You're right." So it's a daily
I
routine.
feel
Like
like
she's excited, and then she comes to her senses of like, we have kids who leave the fence gate open, and that dog's just gonna run away.
But you
It's
keep
true.
like moving the goal down the field. Because
Yeah.
I remember you telling me, well, we can't have a dog until the baby is born.
Yeah.
Baby has been very much born. Baby is alive and well, thriving, doing great. So shouldn't it be time to get the dog? That's what you said.
Something to think about. Something to think about.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. As long as I can keep moving the goalposts, I will, because it's kind of nice not having a dog.
You also said you didn't want to have a dog until your kids were old enough to like do the dirty chore of
That's
cleaning
right.
up after
That's
the
right.
dog.
Yeah, and they're not. So
I saw
No.
the way they picked up those little like spiky ball things that fall from the tree in your front
yeah,
yard.
it wasn't great.
No.
Not very efficient.
Not the same.
Yeah.
They're ready. They're ready.
I don't know. Okay, so Sarah, you're partly here because you're here because we love you, but you're here because I want to hear your perspective on kids and students going through isolation. But before we talk about that, I want to hear about your weekends and MergeCon. So
Yeah.
you guys were both part of it. Tell the friends of the pod who may have no idea what that is, what it is, and what you guys did over the weekend.
Do you want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. Well, MergeCon, it's so for the fall retreat, all of high school went away to somewhere to have a retreat kind of offsite and do that. We actually did that winter of last
did.
year. Last
Mhm.
year's winter
Yep.
retreat. I was part of that too.
Yep.
But for this year, we kept it in-house for the most part. Large group gatherings happened in the auditorium, which completely doesn't look like the auditorium. I kind of wished we were able to leave up some of the
Mhm.
features we had for MergeCon if we could have left them up through Sunday
like
morning.
the runway.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a catwalk, for
Catwalk.
MergeCon. There were
Yeah.
curtains hung to kind of make that giant fishbowl of an auditorium feel a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
There were smoke geysers under the grates of the stage. I
Yeah.
think there was 4 of them.
The effects were awesome.
They like to
The
go
lights.
out with the
Mhm.
lights. The lights especially.
With that
John
first
M.
song.
Jimbroik, our lighting tech, he loves to do the most, which we love. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not always like we can get away with doing that kind of thing on a Sunday morning, but boy, can we when it
did.
comes to MergeCon, and boy, did we. So the smoke was heavy, the lights were flashing, and it was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun.
Good.
So, but they did go off site and do at least one fun thing on Saturday, was it?
We went off site one time on Saturday for Laser Flash.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Classic high school activity.
How do you guys travel? Because of what? There's like 50
School
kids.
bus. Yeah,
Okay,
yellow
school
school
buses.
bus.
All right,
Yep.
good.
Yep.
So, what's kind of like the hope? Like, what did you hope kids experienced or would walk away with?
So, like the parent answer is we are seeking to give our kids the time, the tools, and the truth
Yeah.
to build a firm foundation on Jesus, which we tell the kids as well, and we
Mm-hmm.
do. But the kid answer is we want them to have as much fun surrounding Jesus, their friends, and trusted small group leaders as possible.
Yeah.
We want to create a safe space. We want them to be known and loved,
Mm.
doing anything they can do, whether it's reading scripture or a mini mosh pit. Or someone
Yeah.
may or may not have been crowd surfing
Oh
on
boy.
Saturday night.
Oh boy.
The
Freshman
the
boys.
high school retreats and events and things like that are always amazing because it's like kids run in, like as soon as the doors open, they run to the front of the stage and there's mosh pit or
Yeah.
whatever. But then you go to like a normal merge and it's like, at least from what I remember, it's like they just like kind of like stand there?
It depends.
Yeah.
Really?
It depends on the
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Usually, like, there's a group of teenage boys that wants to jump to like every song,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like whether or not that song like requires jumping, but they
Yeah.
just come in so full of energy and
Yeah.
they like having fun and they provoke one another to good works, and so they start
Okay.
jumping. But yeah, the
Very
girls
timely
girls
reference.
especially, they tend to be a little bit more just kind of chill.
The girls
Yeah.
like to sway. It's
Sway,
very
yeah,
sweet.
arms around each
Yeah,
other.
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
unless there is a prescribed move for that song. So like
Yes.
they're still at that age where they like to do
Yep.
the moves, and
Yep.
if one person gets low, everybody gets
Oh,
low.
Yep.
okay. Yeah.
That kind of thing. That's still very much in vogue.
Well, I showed up to service at 11 o'clock the past weekend, and all the high school kids were there. They were there for the service,
Yeah,
right?
it was
and so
awesome.
they
Yeah.
were actually like a bunch of them went on stage before the service started doing what do they do?
Church
the
clap.
church clap.
Yeah, church clap, which my kids love. My
Your
6-year-old
kids love
my
the church
6-year-old loves a church clap.
Oh,
Because they do it upstairs in Grace Kids.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I didn't
He's
know
like he's
that.
always
Yeah.
asking to listen to church clap. I'm like, how do you know what this is? But yeah.
We like to have long on ramps for our kids
Yeah.
to join
Yeah.
Grace students, so it starts
yeah.
in Grace Kids.
Yeah, he's into it.
that's so cool.
Okay, well, was there any like big wins that you guys are celebrating right now over MergeCon or just student ministries?
Yeah, I think having Dave Rod come, our
Mm.
founding pastor, Dave Rod, came to
Yeah.
do a 2.5-hour Destiny workshop,
Mm.
which was his first time to do that for high school
I
students.
just need to look at the birds.
Come
I mean-
again,
That's Dave.
I didn't know that Dave liked birds.
See?
Sarah. This is why it's best not to come prepared, because you will just get derailed at every turn.
That's good. The apple didn't fall far. Yeah, we did not do any bird watching,
Yeah.
but we looked up at our calling.
Oh,
Our
good.
Destiny.
Yeah.
It was pretty profound. That
Yeah.
was a highlight. The students were so into it.
And that tied in with your overall theme of just identity. That was
Absolutely.
the theme of every session that we had in large group, and I
Yeah.
thought that was a really perfect accompaniment to
Yeah.
that conversation.
Yeah, it was beautiful because even Friday night, Randy kicked us off talking about a label that he had received that was incredibly painful
Oh.
as a high school student. Still, he still remembers it in his 20s. And we take those labels off when we become new creations in
Mhm.
Christ. But we know the battle as adults is to continue to take them off.
Yeah.
You continue to replace it with who Jesus says you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a fantastic weekend.
Good.
Yeah.
That makes me really happy. I'm glad to hear that. We'll probably hear more about that in the coming weeks. Because I think you're slated to share some stories in service, maybe.
Yeah.
We are. That's right. We are.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we wrapped up the fifth and final week of our sermon series, Virtual Reality. And I don't know, Barry's obviously not here to talk about a sermon, so I thought we'd talk big picture, overarching ideas and takeaways from the series in general. And then maybe do just a little dive into the face-to-face stuff that Barry was talking about. But the big idea of the series is that technology may change, but human beings always remain the same. And because we know that, there are some principles that we can rely on when it comes to how we can behave in a digital age. And those principles are, we went through one at a time, one per week. The first one being you are on mission, which is what we've talked about many times the past couple weeks on this podcast. Number 2, garbage in, garbage out, talking about the content that we consume and share and post online. Principle number 3 was Sabbath breaks chains. We have to learn how to stop the grind from time to time. And last week, or the week before last week, likes do not define you. Our digital world is full of tribalism and vanity, and our identity is found in Christ. And this week, Barry gave us the 5th principle, which is we heal face to face. So let's talk a little high level. Knowing that those are the 5 weeks, the 5 principles, what will you guys take away, either personally or what will you see that Grace has taken away from a series like this?
I would hope, I mean, there's something to take away from every week. And some of those big ideas that Barry shared are so sticky, I think that they're going to stick around. The garbage in and the garbage out, that's already kind of a known phrase. But healing face to face, healing face to face is not necessarily a known phrase in our society, but it's oh so true. And at both the 9:15 and the 11 o'clock services, at least from what I could hear in the room, people just really were resonating with this message of not neglecting to gather together, as it says in Hebrews. Barry had a short time of prayer at the cross. Now we announce prayer at the cross every Sunday when service ends. But this time he made more of a marked effort to say, hey, meet me at the cross and we're going to pray over this specific thing. And I noticed not only a flood of people who went to the cross to pray with him, but even after the prayer had ended and Barry had gone to the lobby, people stuck around and they hung out with each other and they talked.
Yeah,
and
that was cool.
One person even told me, oh yeah, I got to know somebody and I'm going to their house for dinner this weekend.
Wow.
The community coming together this weekend was incredibly powerful, and you could see it all throughout the service.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think it was a great way to kick off the year, and I hope that we carry that that desire and that mindset. We heal face to face. I hope we carry that with us throughout the remainder of the year.
Yeah, Sarah, what about you? What will you take away from the series?
Yeah, like Maron said, it was all good, but the fifth and final felt profound. It felt holy. And yeah, hearing that we heal face to face, I think we understand that, but we don't consciously talk about it. So yeah, that's my big one. We heal face to face. I was going to say for kids and students ministry, garbage in, garbage out is just weighs heavily, because we know that we did not have to grow up under the same pressure and the same bombardment of having the digital world constantly in our pockets.
Yeah.
But it feels like the antidote to that is healing face to face.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like as a church, we keep doing what we're doing, but I pray that we're going to do it with greater purpose. That when we get people face to face, like it's opportunities to see, the face of Jesus in another person.
Yeah. I think the garbage in, garbage out is the one that concerns me the most as a mom of young adults. I think that's been a concern for a long time, as long as they've been consuming media of any kind, not just phones in their hands, but even the things that they would watch on TV when they were little, or going to a friend's house and not knowing, what kind of content and things like that they're consuming elsewhere. I think I've always lived with this concern, or this kind of low-grade fever of anxiety in regard to, okay, well, what is the world feeding my kids? Will I even know that the world is feeding my kids garbage?
Right.
Yep. I could, especially when they were younger, I pretty much had full control over what was on their plates.
Yep.
I knew what they were getting fed physically, but it didn't take long for me to feel very much out of control with what they were being fed through different, media outlets and things like that. So, but again, healing face to face is how I counteract that anxiety within myself. Like fostering channels of communication with my young adults, to be able to talk about, well, what have you heard lately, or what's funny to you, and what are you into lately? There's a podcast my son watches, and he's obsessed with this podcast, and I wanted to know what it was all about.
Sundays.
I think we're like number 2
all right.
on Jaden's podcast list.
Number 2.
We might be number
quick.
2.
That's quick adoption.
But yeah, I sat there and I watched an episode with him one time, just wanting to know, like, okay, why are you into this? What is this about?
Yeah.
But we had to do that face to face.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think for me, the most convicting one, I think I said last week, my wife was like, are you feeling convicted by any of these messages? And my answer was no.
That's right. That's right. You did share that last week. That's right.
I was like, nah, this doesn't apply to me. But then this past week, Barry's kind of hit me in the face. And my job is to manage a team that works behind the screens and tries to get people digitally connected to Grace Church. And so I am most often found behind the scenes of things. But also, my New Year's resolution every year is to have everybody leave me alone.
Is that every year, or is that special for this year?
No, it's every year. Every year, that's my New Year's resolution. It's for everyone else to leave me alone.
Except for when it's time to go golfing.
Even
then
that.
It's like, let's
No,
get
yeah,
the guys
Or
together.
your game night.
I know. And that's the problem, is that historically I have always been like, I play board games and golf to get away from the screens and to be with people. And that's all true. But I think, like, when he was talking about how isolation and lack of oxytocin makes us irritable and anxious and fearful. Those are things that I've started feeling just in the last year or two that I've never really thought about before in my life. And I think I've spent a lot of time alone. And he said, you know, when you don't have this hormone, this oxytocin, you reject any sense of attachment or trust in other people. And I think that describes me. And so it was very convicting to get back in the room, to get back in the game and get around other people again. So
that's interesting to hear that coming from you, because you have a family. Like, you have built-in people around you all the time.
Yeah, it's weird.
I thought of people I know who live alone when Barry was talking about that kind of isolation. You know, there's no lack of oxytocin in my life because I can get a hug from my husband whenever I want. You know what I mean? But it's interesting to hear that even people who have families can still experience those negative effects of feeling essentially alone.
Yeah, I said a couple weeks ago, like, my kids are already of the age where I'm like, hey, what's going on at school today? And they're like, I don't know. I don't remember or whatever. And what I'm talking about right now is I could press in and be like, come on, man, let's go throw the football or whatever. And we'll talk about it. Or I could be like, all right, if you're not going to talk, then I'm not going to talk.
Yeah.
You know, and that, I think that is the thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I could choose to enter into people's lives, or I could choose to just kind of withdraw. And sometimes in the past few months or year or whatever, I've chosen to withdraw sometimes that when I could have done more to press into people's lives. So, so Sarah, I know your team is aware of all the dangers that this series warns about: the isolation, the tribalism, the vanity, the being chewed up by the digital world, because you deal with kids and students and families every day. And so how are you guys being intentional with Grace kids and Grace students to try to help families deal with some of this stuff?
Yeah. On the kids side of things, what you were just saying with the boys makes me think of something Danny, Randy, and I learned on a Fuller Youth Institute webinar a couple months ago. They said that for youth ministry, warm is the new cool.
Oh, what does that mean?
Warm is the new cool. So kids are so disconnected, so isolated, so anxious, depressed, into their own tribes, that they are not looking for cool leaders, cool pastors.
Well,
thank the
goodness.
Lord. I know.
I agree with you.
The B team can be warm.
I agree.
They're not necessarily cool.
Wow.
And so what we are seeking is, some of it's so basic, but if we heal face to face, every kid needs to hear their name on a Sunday, and every kid needs to hear their name several times. So, you know, we have a lot of kids, but we're on a mission to make sure that every kid's name is known and spoken. I started seeing what changed a couple months ago when I have an easier time connecting with the female students than with our male students, seeing that I am female.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I decided to see what would happen when I intentionally start high-fiving, fist bumping, or slapping a kid on the back, the guys, every single Sunday. You guys, they now come to me for it. They come to me.
For
warmth. And I think after hearing Barry's message, the oxytocin.
That's fascinating.
So even when we're in families where we're jostling with each other, we're sitting next to each other at the dinner table, hopefully, maybe you're getting a bedtime hug, maybe not. I remember my parents stopped giving me a hug goodnight. Probably in middle school. You know, like we weren't a super touchy family. I still try to give my kids a hug every night, and you know they're young adults.
Yeah.
So anyway,
my kids act like they're in pain when I hug them these days. Yeah, it's like it's pretend. It's like it's hurting them. Oh,
it's hurting their pride. But yeah, so with our students, like appropriate touch, right? Fist bumps, high fives, side hugs. Warmth, knowing their names, like the baseline is pretty low, but it makes a difference. So those are some of the things that we're seeking to be warm, not cool in Grace students. And with parents, one of my jobs is to resource parents. So when I know of a great author, when I hear of a great podcast for parenting, a great book, any resources our parents are pretty grateful for.
You're like a wealth of resources.
I
feel
a
like
resource.
every time I'm in a conversation and you are involved in the conversation, you're like dropping quotes from all different speakers and authors, and you are a wealth of information.
Well, I've got one for today.
A very good source for resources.
All
right, friends of the pod.
And friends of the pod,
all
here
ears.
it is. I was listening to a podcast last night, as I tend to do when I'm schlepping on the treadmill, as midlifers tend to do.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to this podcast called No Small Endeavor. It's out of Nashville. And the host was David Brooks, who Dave Rod name drops from time to time. So I feel very well read.
You're in good company.
I know. Thank you, Dave Rod. And he has written a book. It's now a New York Times bestseller called How to Know a Person. And some of the things he's talking about are these baseline human actions, like how as a society with the digital age, we've forgotten how to listen to one another.
Sure.
And we often enter a room ready to know what we want to say.
Yes.
Or we want to be seen, but we're not filled up enough to be listening, right? To be giving of ourselves. So I don't know how I got there, but
that's cool.
Resources like that.
Well, that's definitely a huge part of what Merge does for our young people. We are listeners.
Yep.
The small group leaders are listeners. The staff leaders are listeners. It's what helps them know that they're safe, and it's what helps them feel known and connected.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of it.
Yeah, it is a huge part of it.
So when he was talking about Barry, I'm going to get specific now to this past weekend, but when he was talking about, the physical touch part of getting face to face and being in physical proximity with one another, that doesn't like sit well with some people. How did that sit with you guys? Like, are you guys physical touch people?
Yeah.
A member of our governing board came up to me after that message saying, "Oh, I'm sure you loved that part, didn't you?" Say, "No, I'm not a hugger.
Yeah.
I'm not."
Yeah. Well, I wonder where your kids get it from then.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it's why it feels so weird when I'm hugging them. They're like,
maybe
what
you're
are you
grimacing.
doing? Maybe I'm just an awkward hugger. I've never evaluated my own hugs. Maybe I'm just all elbows.
Elbow hugs.
You don't know where your chin goes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that there are people who like that. Maybe that's their love language, or maybe that's they're naturally prone to communicate in ways that involve physical touch. I am not one of those people. I was talking to somebody earlier this week who's a close talker, real close. Like I could feel that person's breath on my face, and I kept taking small steps backwards to try to and I was trying to like non-verbally indicate that
close talker will keep
this
coming.
is awfully. Yes. So we just kept inching our ways backwards because every time I took a step back, they'd take another step back.
Don't touch me.
Yes. I knew you would play that sound clip, and that sound clip is for me. Please don't touch me. But I do understand. Again, I have a family that lives in very close proximity to me. I am not somebody who is starved for physical touch.
Yeah.
That's a privilege. I live with that privilege. But there were a couple of different instances this Sunday where I was speaking to people after service that I know live alone. And I can't imagine what it would be like for them in a world almost completely void of a physical touch from another human being. And so even things like handshakes and hugs and high fives and things like that, it would probably mean a world more to them than it does to me at this stage in my life. And maybe it will mean more to me at another stage in my life when my kids are gone. Right. And, if I ever find myself in a position where I'm more isolated, it would probably mean a lot more to me. So,
yeah.
But no, I don't think everybody was amening at the idea of physical touch.
I find that on a good day where I'm filled up, me and the Lord are good, or me and my family are good, and I come to church and physical touch is not my primary love language, but I do feel like I am able to find those people who need a hug.
Yeah.
And because of the world we live in, I always ask first.
Yes.
Would you like a hug?
Yes.
I'm rarely turned down here at Grace.
Yeah.
I'm rarely turned down.
Yeah.
So I think because it matters, like the oxytocin, it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you guys can try to reflect on the last time you guys had a meaningful interaction with a person, like person to person, in person, how do you think, we've talked about this last week. We're staring down the barrel of a bunch of person interactions online because it's an election year, right? So it's flinging stuff, as Barry said, flinging stuff over the barricade, flinging grenades over the barricade. If you can reflect on the last in-person interaction you had, or the last time you had a meaningful one, what comes out? Like, what do you remember about that, and how did it make you feel?
What do I remember about the in-person?
Yeah, last time you had a meaningful interaction, what were some of the things, like what made it meaningful? The last time you had a meaningful in-person?
In-person?
Yeah.
I would say probably just the nuance and the gesture. I was thinking about, like, I love my sisters. I love them like crazy. And I was talking to one of those sisters over the phone yesterday or Sunday. We had our sister catch up time. My sister lives in North Carolina. I could talk to my sister every day. I could text my sister multiple times a day. I could FaceTime with my sister once a week, and I would still miss her. There's like a longing to be with my sister. And I guess if I had to pinpoint what that was, it's just the warmth that you lack, or the
proximity.
The proximity, even the nuance of like facial expressions if we're talking over the phone and we're not doing FaceTime, or if we're talking via text or something. I think what makes in-person interactions more meaningful is that human element. It's not like it's just less robotic maybe than talking over the phone or in a text or something like that. You do miss all the nuance in texts and things like that.
Yeah.
Is it like a matter of, like, when I'm on the phone with somebody, I feel like I'm on a clock? Like, I feel like the time's ticking down. I got to wrap this up.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, on the phone with my sister the other day, it was right about dinner time. Her house was a flurry of activity.
Yeah.
And I felt a little bit like I'm keeping her from something.
You had to wrap it up.
Right. Where if I was in the room with her, I probably would have just been playing with my nieces and my nephew and been part of the flurry of activity. And we could have lingered longer. I wouldn't have felt like, okay, I need to let you get to dinner. We all would have just sat down and had dinner. We would have had more time just being together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the ticking clock is something that makes it that I long to be with them and not just talking to them on the phone.
What about you, Sarah? What makes in-person interactions more meaningful than digital interactions for you?
Yeah, I think proximity is huge. The example that came to my mind is Sunday night, my oldest came back for dinner, and on the fly, she was like, "Mom, can you cut my hair?" Because she's a first-year teacher and she's making no money.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "I can save a lot of money if you cut my hair." So I was like, okay.
Have you done that before?
I have.
Okay, good.
Yes. I dabble.
Okay.
I dabble. So we go upstairs to my bathroom where the hair cutting commences. And on a typical Sunday night, I love a good reel, and my kids are gracious to receive my reels with love.
Receive my reels.
So on a typical Sunday night, I would have sent her a reel, probably spoofing elementary school teachers, right?
Yeah.
And instead, here I am cutting her hair, which is, serving her. I'm with her. Hair styling, it's like close proximity, right? And the time. So the time and the touch and the attention and the listening, and she's chatting about her life, and I'm just, trying to make her pretty. And wow, like the difference in how I felt filled up and how she felt with me versus like the hit I get when I hit, share or whatever on the reel, and I know they're going to laugh and they know I'm laughing, but it's a quick hit.
Right?
Fleeting.
Do you know they're going to laugh?
Good question.
I try to be real choosy with what I send.
Oh my goodness. I'm sending things all the time. I'm blowing up.
And nobody's laughing.
Blowing up that family chat. Well, I've learned to just stop sending things to Jaden. Jaden, I know you're not watching them. I just don't even send them to you anymore. But I do put them in the family chat. And the other day, Desi thought something was funny. And then my husband said something to the effect of like, "Don't flatter her. That wasn't even that funny." And it just kind of went down the family chat line. He said 30% of what I send is funny.
30. That's
30.
That's good though.
30% of what I send is actually received as funny. And Desi said, "What are you talking about?"
Of what you send to be...
She sends us funny stuff all the time.
Okay,
and Jen thinks hers are 100% funny.
I don't know. I realize that there is a gap in what we all find humorous.
How dare you?
There's a gap.
Well,
Are you trying to
that's
send
painful.
100% funny things?
Things that I think are like, oh man, they're gonna love this.
But everything you send is supposed to be funny.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, do you send serious reels?
I mean, if you're sending, reels to your boys, I'm nervous.
Good point. All right. Hebrews 10:23-25 says, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Barry said that this word in Greek is actually provoke. How do you think we go about provoking each other to love and good works in today's context?
I did have to look that word up because I love doing that. I go down a lot of rabbit trails that involve words and the way that they can be translated. That word for stir up, it does mean provoke. It can mean provoke in like an argument, like a heated argument, or incite is another good word. How do we incite one another to good works? And I was trying to think of the last time I felt I was incited to do something good.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Merge is a perfect example of that. I wasn't serving regularly with Merge. It's not like written into my job description. And I guess I just didn't know what I didn't know as these different transitions were taking place with changeover in leadership and things like that. I guess I just assumed that the worship part of Merge was being taken care of because nobody asked me for help. So it must be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until I think it was 4 retreats ago, I can't remember. It was actually a student who had let me know, like, we really could use your help.
Mm-hmm.
We need help in this area. And that student made me aware of a need that I didn't know existed. That student invited me to be part of something, and that definitely stirred me up to do this thing. It's why I was involved in the Merge retreat this weekend. One of my favorite moments from the Merge retreat this weekend was when a sophomore boy came up and asked me how he could start singing on the team.
I know.
Oh, cool.
That was the best.
Yep.
And that wouldn't have happened had not this student, a year or two ago, told me, identified that there was a need, and then invited me into that space.
Yep.
Another example came out. We just had our core team meeting this last Thursday. And the cool part about the core team meeting, which is kind of like our church membership meeting, we break off into our groups after our large group session together. And in my weekend experience small group, somebody told a story of how they were first brought on to the worship team. And this is a person who's been on the team long before I ever even got to Grace Church. But they said they were at the YMCA. And somebody saw them and they started talking about music. And next thing you knew, that person was inviting him to join the team. And now he's been on the team for, I don't know, probably over a decade now.
Wow.
And he's one of the most committed members of our team. But
That's awesome.
He, like many others, assumed, oh, well, they've got musicians up there every weekend, and they've got singers up there every weekend, and they must have it covered. And there's an assumption that is made. But I think when the need is identified, and then you're invited to come and fill that need, I think that's one way we can stir each other up to good works. Instead of kind of acting like, we've got it covered. Instead of me acting like my worship team, my ministry areas got it all covered, actually letting people know, no, we need more drummers and more keyboard players and more vocalists and you name it, and inviting people to come might stir them up to something that they wouldn't necessarily have done before.
Well, in both of your instances, those were in-person experiences and encounters.
Absolutely.
They did not happen via text or a screen.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't a social media post. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
But it was an embodied invitation.
Yeah, very personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to help that student finish out her senior year strong. That's what got me involved with helping Merge students with worship.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I think people that make me feel like I'm safe with them, and I don't mean like safe space. I mean like they're filling that I get to fill their cup or they fill my cup. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we're either emptying or filling each other's cups when we have interactions with people, and being intentional about building safety with one another, like sharing in vulnerability. Establishing our mission. So if we are on mission digitally, like sharing in that with one another, I think that's when I feel like I'm being provoked to acts of love and good works. That's when I feel like I'm stirred up. Like you kept saying stirred up, is when somebody makes me feel like this person is a safe person because they've chosen to be vulnerable with me, in their walk with Christ. They care about me as a human being and the mission that we're both on. And so that's historically when I have felt provoked. And actually there's a guy who I met when I was probably like 12 or 13, and he is turning 50 this weekend, and he invited me to his like birthday party. And I was like, this guy has provoked me my entire life to like be a better person, and challenged me, but encouraged me. And it's all because when I was 12 or 13, like he made me feel like I was safe with him in relationships. So I don't know.
Yeah. Barry said the answer to that question of what do we do? How do we provoke one another or incite one another to good works? He said the answer was in Hebrews 13, keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters. Don't forget to show hospitality, especially to strangers. It's that kind of thing. You're right. These interactions are face to face. That's how we stir one another up. And it's not to say they might not see a social media post and decide to get involved, but more often than not, it's this kind of very interpersonal, face-to-face interaction where we just keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters.
So when Barry invited everybody to come back, like that was one of his big takeaways. It's like, come back to spiritual community, whatever that means to you. What did that mean to you guys?
Well, I'm already here, so
what does come back mean?
No, he did talk to those who are coming every weekend. Maybe it means serve one and attend one. Maybe it means going deeper and getting involved in ways, that you're maybe not involved right now.
Yeah.
Even if you are coming, there are still other things you can consider. But he spoke also to those of you who, again, church attendance has declined since the pandemic and all those things, and everybody feels it and everybody knows it. And maybe it's time to recommit yourself to making this a regular practice and a regular part of your life, not just for yourself, but for others. Like, think about the interactions that we're missing out on every week by people not being here and the difference that they could have made in somebody else's life by being here, let alone the oxytocin that you will receive from coming and shaking hands with everybody and being a part of a community and a family. I'm so bad with internet terms. Is it called a meme? Do they say memes these days?
Settle down.
There's a picture with words on it.
Meme?
I still do.
Yeah.
I still
Floating around the internet that says church is not something you go to. It's a family you're a part of.
Yeah.
See, that's not a funny meme.
It's not, which is why I didn't share it with my family because they wouldn't have laughed.
Okay.
However, trying to share it here in a meaningful moment.
There's a nugget of truth, right?
Yeah.
Church is not something that you go to. It's a family that you're a part of. And I think those of us who get that, like when you know, when you get it, you come every week because you don't want to go a week without seeing your family.
Right.
There are people out there that don't have that understanding, where church is very much like, okay, well, what's in it for me? They haven't yet crossed over to realizing that, no, this is family. This is what family does. Somebody sent me a prayer request this morning, and it was a lengthy prayer request, but they followed it with, you're probably sick of hearing this. Oh my goodness. And I said, no, I'm not sick of hearing it. Like, that's not what family does. If you're hurting, I want to stand in intercession for you. Yeah. Whether you're hurting for 10 minutes or 10 years, like that's what family does. We're in it together for the long haul. I'm not sick of hearing this from you. But just, kind of reinforcing this notion of we're family. I really mean it. I don't mean that in a cliche way. Right. I really mean it. And again, when you know. Like, there are people I see in the lobby that I only get to see once a week. But my goodness, it makes my week that I saw them, that we got to have an in-person, face-to-face interaction. We may have been texting all week, but it's different when we're in the room with each other. Yeah.
And it's different when when you go to see your family, you don't go put your coat on a coat rack, eat dinner, and immediately get up and leave, right? There's a sense of lingering. You take your shoes off, you take your coat off, you linger, you stay a while. That's when the good stuff comes out. And I think the same is true at Grace, it's when you're willing to come and linger and stay a while that the good stuff comes out, meaning that's when you share your troubles. That's when you share a laugh. That's when you roll up your sleeves and go to the kitchen and maybe, help clean up after a kitchen or whatever. Yeah. It's the lingering and staying in a while where that feels like I belong here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just, okay, I'm going to mom's house for dinner. What can I get out of it?
Right.
You know that you need to be there for mom. Yep. Mom wants you there.
Yep.
It's you're there for the other person as much as you're there for yourself.
Yeah.
Sarah, so Barry talked a lot about like the implications and the consequences of isolation on younger generations. And so if you could speak to friends of the pod or the people of Grace, what would you have them know if the ultimate message is like come back or come be a part of spiritual community? Like what would you have them know about the implications on these younger generations?
Oh yeah, that's big. I would ask people, come back and roll up your sleeves and find a way to get to know someone in the younger generation. There is something so life-giving hanging out with or serving with people who are 10, 20, 30 years younger than you are or more, whatever your age is. It's incredibly life-giving. A kid will give to you as much as you will give to a kid.
Yeah.
I think I'm consistently surprised at how filled up I am. In my role, I get to give out, right? I get to pour myself out for the well-being of high schoolers, middle schoolers, kids, babies, but I get filled up in return. And I think we forget that math.
Yeah.
That's not mom math. That's like God math, right?
Mom math.
Have you heard of this mom math?
No, I don't know what that is.
Check out your reels. Maybe I'll send you one. It's mom math.
Okay, yeah, send me a mom math reel.
Math. This is God's math and God's economy. Man, invest yourself in the life of a kid. Their problems will humble you. Their problems will show you more about who Christ is. You don't know how much you know Jesus until you're trying to tell him to a kid. Right?
Yeah.
Man, because they see through all the facade.
Yeah.
And kids aren't very scary. Some people don't feel like they have the gift of hanging out with kids, but you might have the gift of pushing a button, right? Or sitting at a counter. When Barry talked in the sermon about serve one, worship one, that is inciting to me because we all live, that kind of professional Christian life, but we see what happens with people who trust that God's going to meet them in that. And it's where the good stuff is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I asked my breakout team at our core team this past week, what keeps you coming back? Because you're right, we're professional Christians, but somebody who's got a family, little kids, who's got a job, and then they come here after a long day at work to serve on production at a Wednesday night rehearsal. Yep. What keeps you coming back? And by and large, almost every one of them said, it's the family. It's the people. These are my people. This is who I want to be around. Like this, it doesn't drain me to come here after a long day of work. It fills me up. I want to be here as often as I can. And it was very encouraging to hear that from them, but also a reminder of God's economy that totally makes sense. We're giving and he's filling us up. Yeah. And he's doing that. I mean, not just with his word and with his Holy Spirit, but he's doing that because of our proximity to one another as we continue to keep on loving each other as brothers and sisters. It's also very plain. Like it just makes sense, but yet it's something that's so completely missed by such a large sector of our society. But those who know.
Yep.
All right. So, Maron, you're the perfect person to ask this question to. Where are we going next?
Well, we get to start a new sermon series this coming weekend. No, I'm excited about this one, not just because it's my first time kicking off a sermon series.
Yeah.
I've been the closer.
Oh, okay.
I've been like that middle,
Here we go.
that middle relay girl, but this is my first time kicking one off.
Gird your loins.
Exactly. We're going into the series that's going to take us up through Easter and actually 2 weeks beyond Easter.
Long series.
But we wanted to just spend some time, like a good chunk of time, just looking at Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
right? We talk about all kinds of things on the weekend, and we just talked about technology for 5 weeks, and we just want to center in and focus in on the person of Jesus, but through the lens of the people who knew him best, the people who walked with him and saw him, his disciples, but not just the 12. Just it isn't just about the 12. It's about the people who saw him and witnessed his miracles, and what that meant for them, and what it would have been like to see those things firsthand. So I get to kick it off with the calling of the first disciples, which I need to go home and finish right now.
Right now, huh?
Which is a little bit tricky because we get these sermon series overviews from Barry. And he's like, here's what I had in mind, and here's a couple of scriptures that I had in mind, and talk about Matthew and Peter and who else did he say? Nathaniel. But I'm troubled because I can't talk about Peter without talking about Andrew, and I can't talk about Nathaniel without talking about Philip. So I'm not talking about 3 people. Now I'm talking about 5 people.
I run into this all the
every
time.
Every day, right?
All the
every
time.
Day.
I run into that exact problem.
I saw, it wasn't a meme because it was a video. What do they call them?
Maybe it was a reel.
It was a reel. But it was about overthinking. It was about overthinking. And this poor kid was like clutching to this rope for dear life. They were floating in water and freaking out, screaming, crying, freaking out, clutching to this rope. And then like their swim instructor comes along and just like tilts them up, and they realize that they're in like 1.5 feet of water. And all they had to do was just put their feet down and stand up. That spoke volumes to me.
Oh, that's you.
So I sent it to my daughter, who is also an overthinker, and she found it funny because everything I send is funny.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, that's me. That's me with this sermon
funny.
in particular. I am overthinking it to death.
Well,
and I
you
just
you
need to go home and write it. Oh, I do every time, but this one's even worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, stay tuned for that, guys. You're
I
gonna
can't
love to
wait
see
for
how
the
that
sermon
turns out.
series.
And
That sounds
Sarah,
great.
you've got game night coming up.
We do have game night
Yeah,
coming
tell
up.
us a little
Grace
bit
Kids
about
game
that.
night. It was a beautiful convergence, and it's like a holy accident that we did not know how the series was going to culminate on talking about
perfect.
connection.
Yeah.
But on the Grace Kids and Students team, we pray together every Tuesday. And a few months ago, we started praying like we need more connection.
Yeah.
We need more connection as a church, as a ministry. We want it's like Cheers. Cheers, like where everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
tell you
was the
what.
saddest. That was the
But man,
saddest
I'm dropping
birthday.
all of like the
That
80s
bedtime
and
theme
90s
song.
shows.
Yeah, I tell you what, all the
because
young
it's
people that
showing.
were like, "Hey, we're in on Between Sundays because the videos between you being like,
Sorry,
it's not a meme,
millennials.
it's a video," and Cheers references. They're all gone now. They're all gone.
Well, I don't have any Gilmore Girls references,
Okay,
but we want everyone to know your name, and that's what we're hoping happens at Grace.
Good.
It's family game
We're
night.
coming. Benders will be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
you say game night, we're there.
We're bringing our competition and
All right.
snacks.
All right,
So,
good.
Yeah.
I might come for the snacks.
Okay. Yeah, they're going to be good.
Sarah, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
thanks
thanks
for
for having
joining
me.
us. I hope it wasn't as scary or formal as you thought it would be.
I feel I'm not under pressure any longer.
No,
That's
yeah.
right. We can
You're
just
off
talk
the
for
hook.
hours.
Yeah.
We're just talking with
Yeah.
headphones
Yeah.
on.
All right. Good. All right. Between Sundays, you can find us on youtube.com/gracechurchin. And you'll find us there. So you can watch and or anywhere podcasts are downloaded. So find us there, like, subscribe. Maron, will you please send us out?
I sure will. Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
And we'll see you on the other side of Sunday.